everyone. I am here to tell you a story today. This is the story of how my insurance company decided that they didn't care about my health and were going to try to kill me. If you've noticed, I haven't been around for the last few months, and that's because I was dying, and my insurance company is to blame for that. It all started about 1.5 years ago when my meds I had been on for 9 years, I was on an infusion of Remicade for my Crohn's, was denied after 9 years of not really having a problem. They decided that they were going to have a problem with my medication. So the first denial I got was because I had an outdated TB test. The kind of medications I'm on leave you open to infections like TB a little bit more, so that is a standard test. I didn't really think anything of it. I hadn't had a TB test in a few years, so I was like, okay, I'll go get a TB test. Unfortunately, I found this out while I was there for my infusion. I was already not feeling well. It was after hours. It was like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So there was no way of getting a hold of anybody. So I signed a contract with my infusion center saying that I would pay if the insurance company didn't. I really needed my meds at the time, and as far as I knew, all they needed was a TB test and we were good. I was going to go do that the next day. It would get approved and we would go on without a hitch. So I did. I went and got my TB test. I turned it in, and I thought everything was good. And we went on for a little while, and I got another denial saying they didn't have enough notes on my record. I have been on this drug for 9 years. There are plenty of notes on my file about why I need it and how often I need it. I do need it twice as often as a normal person because I metabolize my meds twice as fast as normal people. Any med. I've woken up during procedures. I have drugs wear off all the time. I build up antibodies to it. I'm extremely immune to a lot of medications. The fact that Remicade has worked this long for me is a freaking miracle. I've never had anything work this long. It's a unicorn. I do have antibodies in my system to it, but it still is working. And I'm going to hold on to that for as long as I can. But I do need it every 4 weeks instead of the usual every 8 weeks. So anyway, my doctor's office sends over notes. We think all's good. I'm still going and getting my infusions every 4 weeks because as far as I know, they're approving it. As far as the infusion center knows, I've signed a contract saying I'm going to pay for it. So we're both blithely going along, getting my meds. And then I get another denial saying that they don't have any record of all the other medications I might have tried that could work besides Remicade. Okay, I have been on Remicade for 9 years. Like, this is a question that they asked when I first went on it. Why would I try another medication when Remicade's working? That doesn't make any sense. So we, went through all the medications I had tried, which was basically everything that had been on the market before Remicade, came up, and turned that in. And my thing is, the only thing that isn't something I've tried are the new shiny meds that are super expensive. Remicade's old. It's still expensive, but it's not as bad as some of these new drugs that are out there. So why would you want me to be on something new when the old stuff is not as expensive and it works? But who knows what they're thinking. I am going to say on my EOBs, my explanation of benefits, that every 6 months my Remicade is billed to insurance at $55,000. Now that sounds like a lot and it's really expensive. If you look at what the insurance company is actually contracted to pay, it's closer to about $5,000. So they get charged $55,000. They're under contract. They only have to pay $5,000. The infusion center writes off the rest of it. Everybody's happy. So if you look at it in the long run, my meds are only $10,000 a year. Still seems expensive, but not as expensive as $100,000. So, we send in the information, and then I get a denial saying that the medicine is not being taken as prescribed. Now, this is in reference to the fact that I take my medication every 4 weeks instead of every 8 weeks. But the way they worded it, as prescribed, the last time I checked, doctors prescribe medication, and my doctor prescribed every 4 weeks. So to me, I am taking it exactly as prescribed. So what is your problem? So we sent that in too, saying like, look, and I took very expensive tests that I have to pay for. They're like a couple $1,000s called Prometheus tests to show the levels of my blood and all this backup information showing that this is actually something that I need. It is medically necessary for me. And they sent the final denial saying, well, we just don't think it's medically necessary for you to be on this medication. What else do you want me to be on? I've tried everything else. This is a common tactic that they tried before I started Remicade to get me to go back onto prednisone, corticosteroid. I'm not allowed to be on prednisone because it killed the blood vessels in my knee and gave me avascular necrosis, and that killed my bone. Like, I have 2 dead spots on my knee from taking prednisone. I am no longer allowed to be on it. There's probably a lot of other weak spots in my body that just didn't get bad enough. But if I went on prednisone, who knows what sections are going to pop up next, being dead. Who knows? So my doctor said, you're not allowed to be on this anymore. That was over a decade ago. And I was very happy about that because prednisone is a shitty drug with shitty side effects. It's just a horrible drug, but at the time it was a stopgap. When the actual drugs that I needed to take for my Crohn's weren't working, they would put me on prednisone for long periods of time until we could figure out a new drug that would work for me. So I'm not allowed to be on it. Somebody must not looked on that in my file and decided they were going to try to get me back on prednisone, because guess what? Prednisone costs $12 out of pocket a month for a bottle. So of course they want to pay that. Like, you know, they wouldn't even have to pay that. It's almost free. So anyway, this entire time I'm still getting my infusions every 4 weeks at my infusion center, but it's now a year later and they want to get paid. So now I'm getting a bill for like $50,000 because they're now charging me the wrong rate. I had agreed to one rate and they were charging me like 4 times the amount. So now I'm arguing with my infusion center over that. I'm like, I'm willing to pay, like, this sucks, and I'm working with my insurance company, but I understand that you want to get paid, but we agreed on a certain price and you need to honor that, and then I will pay the bill. We're still fighting about that. And we're still fighting with the insurance company to pay that. But now it's to the point where I need to find something else to do. It's been over a year. What's going to happen? I've been on Remicade this whole time. I've been healthy. Anybody who's been on my channel knows that I have been on a weight loss journey for the last 2 years. I go to the gym all the time. I travel all the time. I'm doing races. I'm doing weightlifting. I was supposed to be doing the Spartan races this year. I am a really healthy individual as long as I'm on my medication. Like, everything is flowing smoothly. And now I'm stuck with the fact that my infusion center is telling me that they're not going to give me my meds anymore unless I agree to pay this higher price. And my insurance company saying they're not going to okay my meds at all. So my very last infusion was at the beginning of April for Remicade, and I immediately left my infusion and made an appointment with my doctor the next day. And I said, fine, I give up. I will still try to make them pay for the Remicade for the last year, but I'm tired of fighting with them over this. They're just not listening. No matter how much information we sent, how many tests, how much, you know, just data that we sent them that shows I need this medication, they're just arbitrarily saying, no, we're not going to pay it. Like, what gives them the right to decide what medication I need? That's a decision for me and my doctor. And if my doctor says that's something I need, that's something the insurance company should be paying for. So I was like, fine, I give up. I will go on the new shiny drug, Entyvio. We will give this a try, but you need to get this approved within 4 weeks, because that is when my next infusion is up. And if I do not get my infusion, I will be down with a huge Crohn's flare within a week. Because although I am super healthy, I am also older, and my Crohn's has evolved where I go from being perfectly healthy to almost needing to be in the hospital within a week. It's just, I go down so fast if I don't get my meds. It didn't used to be like that. It used to take me a lot longer. It used to take a couple months for me to go down, but not anymore. It's like within a week. So I'm staring down a timeline now. And the insurance company's dragging their feet. They're not approving the Entyvio. They won't approve the Remicade. And I'm shit out of luck. So the 4 weeks comes and goes, and I start getting really sick. And it happened to be a time of month where I couldn't afford to be sick. I had to go pick up my son from college. At that time, I was still functioning, but really ill. The way I get around that is I don't eat. I don't eat until I know I don't have to leave the house. So I drove all the way out to Sacramento in the afternoon without having eaten and picked him up, and we checked into a hotel. And I ate a tiny little bit and was miserable. And I was supposed to see my cousin graduate the next day from the same college. And I did make it to her graduation, but I didn't get to stay. I made it to when she walked, and then I had to leave because I was so ill, I couldn't sit there anymore. So I booked it home, and I climbed into bed. And that was May 18th. I remember because it's the day my cousin graduated from college with her nursing degree. And I didn't get to see my family. Had flown in to see her, my aunt, uncle, and cousins. They were wondering where I was. I was already gone. I didn't get to see any of them. I missed my daughter's dance recital the very next day. I missed her dance festival at school. I missed her birthday party. I missed my birthday. I missed my husband's birthday. All of these happened while I was laying in bed with extreme abdominal cramps and running to the bathroom with diarrhea anytime I moved. I couldn't move. I had to sit perfectly still. If anybody even shook the bed, it started the cramps up and I had to run to the bathroom. I spent most of that month in the bathroom or lying in bed trying not to run to the bathroom. I was taking fistful of Advil. I was trying everything I could to help alleviate the pain. So while I was down and out, the approval for Entyvio finally came through. It was 2 weeks after I went down. And they said, okay, we're going to pay this. And I thought that this was the end of it. Okay. But I was so sick by that time that I couldn't even drive. I could barely walk. My husband had to take me in. I'm surprised they were able to get a vein on me, being as deficient as I was in everything. And I got Entyvio. Now, when I got Remicade, I could feel the drug working immediately. I could feel it warring with my Crohn's. I could feel my body trying to be in pain and the medicine counteracting that. I can feel that happening for a few days after I get my Remicade until it beats my Crohn's into submission. I didn't feel anything with the Entyvio. I felt like they gave me a placebo. It was nothing. But I kept getting told, oh, don't worry, this is just the ramp up. We just have to get a baseline in your system and it's going to get better. And I'm like, I'm bedridden and unable to eat. Like, it's not getting better. I actually was getting worse. So when they ramp something up, you get an initial dose, you get it 2 weeks later, and then you get it like 6 weeks later. And so I got the initial dose, nothing happened. And we're like, okay, when we get to the next dose, then I'm going to have enough in my system to do something. But I was so sick by then that this medicine didn't stand a chance. Shiny new drug. It's supposed to be the best on the market. It's supposed to be really good for people who are going through a severe Crohn's flare. It did nothing for me. I went in for the second one 2 weeks later, still bedridden, still not eating. Got my second infusion, waited for that magical feeling. Nothing happened. So now I've had 2 infusions of Entyvio. I am still sick as a dog, and nothing's happening. And we were like, okay, well, let's just wait it out over the weekend, and then we will, talk to the doctor after that. I got to the point where I would eat one thing, like one bite, and it would be I was trying the simplest things. Let me try a grilled cheese sandwich. Let me try a bite of, top ramen, something that was innocuous, and nothing worked. So it got to the point where I was not eating at all, and I was living on ice water. And then the day came that I started throwing up ice water and anything I ingested. So all day I was having trouble, and my husband was like, "You can't go through this anymore." He was like, "Without water, you're gonna die." So we went to the hospital that night. I was in so much pain. I was out of it. Just out of my mind with frustration and being overwhelmed and just pain and hopelessness. So we were at the ER at 2:30 in the morning, and I know my husband took video of what I look like, and I'm gonna get that from him and put it in here somewhere. And I told them when I went in, I said, "You need to give me pain meds. You need to put me on TPN, that's total parental nutrition. It's IV food, because I cannot eat. And you need to try to get Remicade in my system as soon as possible." Well, I got the pain meds. I didn't get the TPN right away because they had to give it through a PICC line, and I was adverse to a PICC line because the last time I had been in the hospital like this, that had involved actual surgery, and they had cut into my chest and into my neck to get a catheter into my blood system. And I was like, "Why can't you just give it through the IV? That's where I've had it before." And they were like, "We don't do that anymore." So they were giving me sugar water and supplements like iron and magnesium and folic acid, because I was obviously deficient on all of those. And they admitted me, and I got my pain meds every 4 hours, because when I wasn't on them, I could feel my body eating itself, and it was not pleasant. Not pleasant at all. I was just in so much pain. The Dilaudid took the edge off that, thankfully, and I would turn into a normal person for a couple of hours, and then the pain would start wearing off, because I don't know if I've told you this, but I metabolize meds twice as fast as normal people, so the pain meds wore off twice as fast also. I was able to get my pain meds increased a couple of times through this ordeal, which helped out, but like I said, I metabolize them fast. So anyway, then it started the what are we gonna do? How are we gonna get you out of a flare? And I kept telling them, "You need to put me on Remicade." So now I'm in the hospital. I'm getting sugar water. I'm getting supplements, and now I'm arguing with the doctors about putting me back on Remicade. And I kept telling them, "Just put me on Remicade, and I will walk out of this hospital in 2 to 3 days and be eating a cheeseburger. Like, that's how fast it works for me. Just put me back on there." Like, I am wasting away. By this time, I have lost 17 pounds since I first started to flare. I went from 177 pounds down to 160. I actually weighed in at 159 when I got back from the hospital at one point. It was ridiculous. Like, just put me on Remicade. And they were arguing with me about, well, the insurance isn't going to pay for it. Well, in the hospital, it doesn't matter what the insurance wants. The doctor's rule. So give me the freaking Remicade. Let's get me back on my feet. And then we figure out what to do when I get out of here. Then it was, well, you're already in the Entyvio ramp up, so we don't know if we're actually physically able to give you Remicade. So now we have to go talk to clinical specialists and figure out if you're able to be on this. Okay, go do that. It took a few days. In the time that I was arguing with my doctors, I submitted to a PICC line. I had an amazing hospital roommate, and she talked some sense into me, told me PICC lines ain't nothing, just get it done, it's super easy and you're gonna love it. And she was right. I am eternally grateful for my roommate. We are still friends, and we were the fun room because we were both on Dilaudid. So I have to say thank you very much, Lou, for being there for me in my time of need, and talking sense into me when I needed it. So they put the PICC line in, which made blood draws super easy. I also have very bad veins, so trying to find veins on me like every few hours was turning into a nightmare. So you can use the PICC line for blood draws, and instant Dilaudid, instant TPN. It really helped out. Something that struck me while I was in the hospital was everybody assumed that this is something I go through on a regular basis. Everybody assumed that it was just a routine thing with my Crohn's. Oh, you must go through this. No. I had to make a point. No, this was done to me. I was perfectly healthy. I'm pulling out my phone and showing pictures and videos of me doing races, doing weightlifting, like all these things that I used to be capable of doing only a month or two ago. I was like, this was me less than 2 months ago, and my insurance company has assaulted me. They did this to me on purpose. They took away my meds that they knew were working, and they did this to me. Like, that shouldn't be legal, but somehow it is. And one of my nurses, I was telling him how much the meds are and how much they actually pay, and he pointed to my bag of TPN and was like, that bag right there costs $15,000. Now, granted, that's probably not what the hospital, that's not what the insurance actually pays the hospital, but that's how much they get charged. $15,000. I went through like 4 or 5 of those things. What the hell? Like, you would rather pay for a 10-day hospital stay than to pay for my meds that keep me healthy, where I don't have to go to the doctor all the time, where I'm not in the hospital? Like, how is that cost analysis going for you now? I don't get it. So, I got my PICC line in, I got TPN, I got my Dilaudid, my blood draws were much easier. I'm arguing with my doctors, and they finally came back with, hey, you know what? It turns out that giving Remicade in the middle of an Entyvio ramp up is actually synergistic. It actually helps. Awesome sauce. Then it took like another 3 days to get it like signed in because nobody wanted to sign the order. I don't know why. Finally, one of my doctors was like, you know what, screw it, I'm signing it right now. So he signs it. That was on a Tuesday morning. So I have been in the hospital for a week now. Tuesday morning. Okay. The very next, I got the medication 7 o'clock that night. He signed it in the morning. It takes a little while for the pharmacy to, get the order and prepare it. They hung it at 7 o'clock at night. Part of my Crohn's flare, when it's really bad, is not just the abdominal cramps and the diarrhea and the throwing up and the unable to eat and all that good stuff. I get secondary symptoms when it goes too far, and I start getting symptoms of other diseases like psoriasis. I had huge welts pop up on my skin, on my arms. I get subcutaneous swellings on my legs. I get inflamed joints, like from rheumatoid arthritis. This time it was my Achilles tendons. They had inflamed up and they were hot and swollen. I got my Remicade at 7 o'clock at night, and by the next morning, the welts were starting to fade and my ankles were back to normal. Gee, what could it have been? Could it have been the medication I said I needed the entire time that we were fighting for? Oh, yeah, it was that. And guess what? It worked in 12 hours. You kidding me? I got discharged on a Friday. Got the meds Tuesday night. So basically like 3 days later, like I said, I was eating braised beef and mashed potatoes right before I got discharged. We left and I got a steak sandwich, so about as close to a cheeseburger as you can get. Was eating fine. 3 days. got my meds, and I said, I will walk out of here in 3 days and eat a cheeseburger. And that's pretty much what I did. Why don't they listen to us? Why don't they listen to our doctors? Why do they get to play God with our lives? I don't understand that. So I'm out of the hospital, and we are still trying to get authorization for the Remicade, because in the hospital, the doctor can order whatever he wants. But outside the hospital, the insurance company reigns again. So I took some more very expensive Prometheus tests, showing everything. We took all of my test results from the hospital. We took everything and we turned it into the insurance to get approval from the Remicade. And they managed to approve it the morning I went in to pay for it myself. I said, I am not letting myself get sick again, because I was already down. I got out of the hospital, like I said, on a Friday. The Dilaudid, I did not realize, had hid the weakness that was in my body from not having nutrition. I had been acting like a normal person. As soon as I got out of the hospital and wasn't on Dilaudid anymore, I became weak as a kitten. I couldn't move. Like, I had to lay on the shower floor and let the water just hit me to take a shower, because I did not have the energy to stand. I was back in bed, but not because I was down with Crohn's, but because my body was so depleted and so malnourished that I couldn't move. And I didn't have anything to hide that anymore. So it took a week, but I was able to regain enough strength to make it in time to take my kid to camp in Southern California. And we went down and we had an amazing visit. And I spent most of the time sitting because I was very exhausted. But I had the week of getting my strength back and the week of being okay. And the day I had to drive home was the day I started getting sick again, because the meds were already wearing off, because I had been too sick. It wasn't enough. Like, I needed a ramp up dose. So that whole week after I got home, I was down on the couch again. I was still able to eat, but it was painful. My best friend had flown up so that we could go to the Queen concert. I missed the concert, $600 tickets. My husband and my best friend and I had my oldest son go in my place. I missed the concert we'd been looking forward to for 6 months, that my best friend had flown up for, because I was still so sick. And we were having the issue of the next week we were supposed to go to Comic-Con. What am I going to do? So I was like, that's it. I can't go through this again. I don't care if they haven't approved my meds. I'm going to pay for it myself this one time and try to hopscotch into something better. So I told my infusion center, I will pay the $6,500. By the way, I'm going to a new infusion center. I told them I will pay the $6,500. So I showed up on a Tuesday morning, sick as a dog, with my credit card out. And as they were putting the IV in, they said, guess what? Approval came through. Okay. And it's approval for a year instead of 6 months. So I'm guessing the insurance company learned. So I'm guessing they learned a little bit of a lesson, but I don't know if I'm going to have to go through this in another year. I'm not going to wait that long until I go into the hospital this time. I can tell you that much. The last time I went through this was a decade ago when they tried this over my Cimzia, and that's when I started the Remicade, which is why I know how long it's been. And I ended up not going to the hospital that time because they kept telling me that the approval was going to be the next week. And every week I thought that was going to be the week, and it wasn't. And I got as bad as I did this time, if not worse. I refuse to let them do that to me in my life again. This time I only waited a month. Last time it was 2 months. The next time it'll be a week. If they don't approve my meds in a week, my butt's in the hospital and they can pay that bill. Because I am tired of the insurance companies having say over our life. This is not fair. It's not fair at all. I managed to get my meds in time to fly down to Comic-Con. I had an amazing time with my family. We stayed in the middle of Little Italy. I didn't really eat. My body still wasn't ready for that. So my family went out to an amazing dinner night after night in Little Italy while I stayed at the hotel and watched TV, because what was the point of me going to a restaurant if I'm just going to sit there and watch other people eat? So that's what my life is like right now. I'm trying to get back to normal. I have my approval for a year. I'm still not feeling the best, but I'm getting there. And I just want everybody to know what I just went through, and that it was completely preventable. I didn't have to go through that. My family didn't have to go through that. My kids didn't have to see me crying in pain for a month. You know what that did to my 6-year-old who turned 7 in the middle of that? She won't leave me alone. She's with me all the time. I have to walk around with her attached to my leg because she was so traumatized by seeing her mom go through that. My boys have seen me go through it before, so they were a little more prepared. But I mean, what does that do to your children to have them see their parent be taken out like that? That their life is that fragile, and it shouldn't be like that. I should have had my meds the entire time. There is nothing that prevented me from getting them except for the insurance company. There is nothing that prevented me from having a healthy life except for my insurance company. They did that to me. They should not be allowed to do that to us. I know I can't wait until we get to a single payer health system. I just hate insurance companies so much, because they have repeatedly done stuff like this to me. And I know I'm not the only one, because as I share my story, as I walk around, everybody else has a story too of it happening to them or somebody that they love or know. Insurance companies are way too powerful, and they should not be able to do this to us. So that's my public service announcement is, let's work to rein them in. Let's not let them do this to us. Let's get the word out. Like, this is the shit that they pull, and this is how powerful they have become. They own politicians. They own DC. They've written regulations where it makes it impossible for us to be able to take care of ourselves without their say-so. And when they decide that they don't want to work with us, fuck you. It's basically what all those denials were to me. We don't care about your life. It's not worth it. You're not worth the money. You're not worth the effort. But my life is worth it. My kids think it's worth it. I think it's worth it. My husband thinks it's worth it. My family almost fell apart. My husband had to pick up so much slack. My kids missed so much stuff because nobody was there to take them. My friends came through on the basics. The kids made it to camp. They made it, home from school. But all their extracurriculars, they lost out on 2 months of those as they watched their mother writhe in pain. My husband missing work so that he could come home and take care of me and take care of the kids and, help out as much as he can. That should not be an issue. That should not be a problem. I should have been perfectly healthy, but the insurance company decided that $10,000 was too much to pay for my happiness and the happiness of my family and for my life. That was the price they put on my life. You're not worth the $10,000 that we would have to pay per year to keep you alive. And that's just wrong. So, thanks for listening, and I will get back to my regular scheduled programming in a couple of weeks. Bye.